All right. So Shameless Sex here to talk about various things and answer some sex questions, not even related to the Embrace organization. But we want to start with why we love everything that we understand the Embrace organization is doing. We've had so many episodes that were focusing on folks needing support around sexuality, and they need some sort of embodied support and not just talk therapy, actual experience with being in some sort of intimate setting with someone. Before we heard about Embrace, we really didn't know where to send folks up to other than perhaps maybe working with like a sex coach or a therapist or something. But it was like there was this missing level that seemed really important, which was that intimate conversation or container that Embrace is offering. And so when we learned about Embrace through Lou first on our show and then Michelle, we were so excited to hear about this, and we were just instantly like, we want to support this, we want to grow this, and we want to do whatever we can on our end to help Embrace get more people out there, first of all practitioners, to go and help folks who are in need, and also folks in need who don't have a lot of money to be able to afford this. So that's
also educate people about what this actually, like, this organization is backing and also delivering. Right. I think that's important because I had no idea when we first had the first interview with Lou Sanfilippo. Hi, Lou. And then after with Michelle, I learned such a great deal about the importance of the offerings of Embrace. And there's nothing really else out there like Embrace, right? That's pretty much it. So this is pivotal. It's pivotal for humans, and people need what y'all are offering at Embrace.
Does anyone from Embrace want to step up and share a little bit more about Embrace?
Details, please.
So I think first we need to talk about, hi, I'm Jeannie, she, her. I'm a surrogate partner. I'm part of the Embrace team. And we probably first need to talk about what surrogate partner therapy is, since Embrace's mission is to advance the field of surrogate partner therapy. And SPT is really, I think of it as just one of a spectrum of possible supports for folks to help build hands-on intimacy skills for relationships. And as you say, we're set up in the field of SPT to actually be in tandem with talk therapy. And those of you who listened to either of the previous episodes of y'all's podcast that Lou and Michelle were on, this will be very familiar. But we, as surrogate partners, work in tandem with clients and a licensed talk therapist as part of their therapy process to help them build skills for relationships through hands-on experiential learning. There's a lot more that goes into that we could talk about. There's a lot of other forms of support that people might benefit from, but for many people, the kind of intensive therapeutic form of support that is SPT in this triadic model, the client, the talk therapist, and the surrogate partner, can be tremendously beneficial to build skills and sort of help to move through barriers that folks have had to the kinds of intimacy, the kinds of sex, the kinds of relationships that they want in life. So we can layer a whole bunch more on that, but that's kind of basics, and then we can talk about what Embrace is.
Can someone speak to how long the training is for SPT if someone is interested? Because I don't think we've ever really gone into that. And then do you get connected if you do complete the training to go into the SPT world? Do you get linked to the talk therapist separately, or is it someone that yes? Can you talk a little bit more about that in terms of I guess it's logistics?
Does one of my colleagues want to jump in?
Sure, I can take that. So at the moment, there are a couple different institutions or humans or groups who are doing trainings. There are 4 maybe 5, 4.5 in the United States right now, who train surrogate partners, with the International Professional Surrogates Association being the oldest, and still, one of the kind of higher level institutions. But a lot of it depends on where you're trained, right? There are some people who will train surrogate partners in a shorter training. IPSA does what was that? 10 days, 8 days of training, with some like prereq reading in the front, and then mentorship at the tail end, so that your first handful of cases are supported by an additional like experienced surrogate partner who will meet with you and really brainstorm with you. So you not only have the support of the supervising therapist, but you also have an experienced surrogate when you're like, here's what I'm feeling in the room. What of this is mine? What of this do I take back to the therapist? This is what I'm thinking, to help you really make sure that you're tracking for really well thought out surrogate partner cases. But new on the scene, happy to report, new on the scene is the Surrogate Partner Collective, who just had their first training, which is very exciting. And they are really dedicated to making these trainings more robust. And so they are doing the hands-on piece, which is, I don't know if anyone knows how long the hands-on piece lasts for, where people get together 5 days of the hands-on piece, but then really acknowledging the different layers of additional education that really help surrogates operate at a high level of clinical awareness, at a high level of cultural awareness. And so they're doing these follow-up modules. I know many of us, maybe all of us, are teaching some of those modules for them as they trickle out towards the end. So we're very excited to have them on the scene for training. And then I think truly part of why Embrace was formed to do what we do is that, just like you said, like, but then what happens? Yeah, that's where we all found ourselves after training, was like, but now what do we do? And so we've started communities of practitioners that meet up to do case studies, to connect people. And so we've got sexologists and doctors who specialize in pelvic health, all coming together with the surrogate community, with the therapy community, to all talk about like, how are we supporting our clients and how do we stay connected, and brainstorming this stuff together so that we really have a base to work from. And when someone says, I got a call from someone from Tennessee, you've got an audience of people who are saying, oh, I know someone in Tennessee who can be a supervising therapist. And so we're really building the follow-up community that it takes to have a robust practice, so that it can be much fuller and more functional than it was when we came out of our trainings.
Yeah, I love hearing all the little details of how that works. So if someone was interested in becoming trained in surrogate partner therapy, is this something that they sign up for anytime? Is it only like once a year? Like, how often is this something that's available for folks who want to become trained?
I'll handle that. So none of us are part of the core groups that are like actively involved in the trainings. However, we, like Lou said, we have our fingers in some parts of the training. So there are 2 organizations that I think any of us would probably recommend as kind of leaders in surrogate partner training. One is IPSA, the International Professional Surrogate Association, and the other that we strongly recommend is the Surrogate Partner Collective. As Lou said, SPC just finished their first training ever, and they already have a wait list that has spilled over, and will probably offer a second training in early 2024. So they are on track to probably have 2 trainings a year. Historically, IPSA has 1 training a year. And usually what that looks like for either organization is you contact them and you fill out an application. That application involves a written component as well as an interview component, where you get to talk to the trainers and they get to say, what are your life experiences? What is motivating you to do this work? Because there are a lot of people that would really love to be helpful as surrogate partners, but may not have the disposition to do it. And it's really useful to have those interviews, to have the encouragement, if you do have the disposition, the life experience, to hear someone in the field say, actually, I think like this would be great for you to do. So we welcome you into the community. So it is often a long process to wait for a training to come up, to get to the point where you're figuring out, wow, is this something I really can do? You know, is this something I want to do as a professional? I know for me, it took a year and a half to go from applying to finally getting the training done. But that varies. So yeah, definitely if folks are interested in getting trained, contact one of those two organizations.
And when
Yeah.
it comes,
Sorry, I want to jump in really quick and say that, right, our Shameless Sex ladies really hit the nail on the head introducing us, is that the Embrace group is here to elevate the field of surrogate partner therapy. And the reason why we accept donations, and the reason why we are so pleased to be adopted as a cause by them, is that right now, because the trainings are happening in these organizations infrequently, right, there's not as much institutional support. It's not like going for a certificate in graduate study and you can apply for scholarships. So we want to create those scholarships so that people who don't have a lot of representation in the field of surrogate partner therapy, specifically BIPOC folks, specifically LGBTQ folks, can come into the work, in part because we understand the importance of people who are seeking the work having access to surrogates who can bring that lived experience with them, who can meet them in that place. So that's one arm of what we're fundraising for, to offer scholarships to diversify the field, get more surrogates trained, and really diversify the field of surrogates, the kind of surrogates who are available. And then also to make sure we can subsidize care for people who can't afford it. I mean, we get calls all the time for people who are like, I'm a teaching assistant in an elementary school, but I feel like I really need this work. And I've had these traumatic experiences and I haven't had any luck in talk therapy. And often most of us are also piecing our stuff together. And so I know all of us offer sliding scale to some degree where we can. And in order to support that even further so that it's not as dependent on the surrogates and their own financial stability, to say, what would it mean to start a fund so that we could support people through and say, like, yes, you will select a surrogate. We can help pay for X percentage of your care all the way through so that you can have a whole case of care, right? You can go all the way through until you feel like you're done, so that there aren't these considerations of, well, I've run out of money, or, right, my surrogate can't afford to give me a deep cut in sliding scale anymore. So it is really important. And I think the next level in making this field more accessible to all the people who need it.
Great. Thank you, Lou. That's, I think, a great way to look at what y'all are doing. And I don't know, did we talk about, so if there is someone that's licensed as a therapist like LMFT, right, that wants to, or coach, if it's broad right across the states, that want to be a part, maybe they want to just support the organization in terms of helping the triad, right, where the talk therapy part, is that something that they need to do the SPT training as well, or how can they support and be a part of helping the triad? Yeah.
Triad.
I always say triad. I always say it's like tomato.
I'll pop in on this one since I have taken a turn. Yeah, they can definitely be a supportive person in that triad. We highly recommend Surrogate Partner Collective also for a training that is specifically for the therapist to learn how to work in the triadic model with surrogate partner therapy. It makes a world of difference. I've worked with therapists that don't have that training, and it's still doable. But I think that taking a one-day course and getting some common vocabulary makes a world of difference, because then we know that we're kind of looking at the map with the same information on it. Like the compass is there and we're seeing it the same way, so that when I come in with an exercise, the therapist is going to have a better idea of why I'm doing that exercise and what the trajectory of the work looks like.
Yeah, and I think that's so important for us in terms of expanding access to this work, because historically, a lot of client, we all, as an organization, we're working together to kind of strengthen the field. We all have our individual practices working with clients and collaborating with their therapists. And historically, a lot of clients come to SPs through their therapist, and it's been through the therapist usually sex therapists, usually, often in particular pockets of the country where there's just more experience working with folks in SPT. There are, I know coming into this as a trans practitioner, I really wanted to serve the communities, the queer and the trans communities that I came from. And a lot of therapists of folks who I felt like could benefit from this work, SPT wasn't even on their radar, right? They may not, be specifically, their practice, they may not think of themselves as sex therapists, but intimacy issues and challenges come up for folks in working with them, and we want to be able to reach those folks, make this aware that this is an option sometimes for their clients when it may be beneficial, and let them know how they can come to a meeting, an event, get to know surrogate partners, get to know other therapists who have worked with surrogate partners, and share information about resources like this great training that SPC does, so that people can go so that therapists as well as clients can go from being like vaguely aware that this is a thing that maybe exists to like, oh, this seems like it could maybe be really beneficial for some of my clients. How can I plug in and connect with surrogate partners and feel ready to start collaborating with them?
Yeah, I want to open this. I have more questions, but I want to open this up too. If anyone here on this call has questions related to this, and also not, again, related to anything sex and relationships, you can either put it in the chat and we can anonymously read them and answer, or you can raise your hand and we can, if you're open to speaking. So that's just available. I want to like put that out there, and otherwise we'll kind of keep talking about this.
And
here.
If you're watching and it's recording, you can always, what's a good way to contact? You can go to Embrace, is it Embrace spt.org, right? Yes.
Yeah. If you're a therapist, if you are a surrogate partner, if you're somebody who wants to come into the field of surrogate partner therapy, if you're somebody who is a coach, if you're a different kind of hands-on practitioner, want to learn about what we do, or if you're anybody and all and want to support what we do, by all means, come to our website. If you're an individual client looking for support through, we're not set up to do that exactly, but own individual practices and make referrals to other practitioners in different parts of the country.
Thank you for that. And sorry,
a fair summary, y'all?
Oh yes, our connection's a little funny. Can you still hear us right now? Are we good? Cool. Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. That's perfect. So yeah, folks can reach out. So my two-part question, they're kind of separate from each other. So one is, say I want to become a surrogate. So I understand, become a licensed therapist takes many years. But if I ever want to become a surrogate, do I need to have a lot of specific experience? Do I need to already be in the therapy world? Lou has an answer for that. And I have another question after that about the people who want to work with a surrogate too.
Right. I will say, the short answer is a beautiful thing. I think in my cohort of surrogate partners that got trained, we had people who were educators. I myself am also a licensed therapist. We also had people who were like, I'm a postal worker and I'm just like a kinky, super sex positive motherfucker, and I would like to help some people. And so people come in all sorts of ways. And so really, again, to throw back to what Brian had said, a lot of it depends on your disposition and your life experience, right? Where some of us come to the field from tackling our own sexuality and relationship issues. Some of us have had a variety of supporting partners through different medical stuff or managing, there are all kinds of things that lead us to be these like sex and relationship geeks who are particularly attuned, who are particularly able to hold space for other people. And that's kind of what we're feeling for in training. And even past the like vetting to get into the training, tons of, I mean, just about every cohort, I would say you're lucky if you get 3 practicing surrogate partners out of it, because a lot of times people are like, whoa, this is deeply vulnerable work. The feelings are very real. My own shit came up in training, and like, how do I hold that? But also, how do I structure my work life? Because again, we're kind of left off the tail end of training in, okay, now I need to like set up a website, do my own PR, figure out how to do this, figure out who my supervising clinicians are. Like, there's a lot to it. So I think there's a lot of reasons why people may decide not to follow through with the work. But no, you don't have particular life experience other than being like just a dope human with some real sex positivity and a willingness to learn.
Yeah, I would imagine you need the sex positivity and the dope humanness in there too. And that's what I mean. I really appreciate the work because, you know, if I mean, holding any sort of container just as a therapist in talk therapy is still a lot, right? But especially when we're adding on different layers of being in an intimate container. Intimate could just be us, the conversation that we're having, the way we're looking at each other doesn't have to involve touch. But then you add on all these other pieces to it. And I would imagine that it really takes someone with a lot of skill in connecting with people, first of all, really like deep compassion for humans, just love for humans in general, and seeing the goodness in everyone, and really wanting to embrace that and connect with that. I guess so. This wasn't my other.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, see that? Yeah, I threw an embrace there. I do that with Shameless all the time, with embrace. But so this question wasn't my other question about the people looking for a surrogate. Do you think there's other qualities though, other than sex positive and a dope ass human? And like, if I'm like, I think I want to do surrogate, it's not surrogate therapy, but surrogate partner therapy. Is there something you're like, this would be a good sign that it's designed for you?
I think the thing that I was just thinking, like, oh, I left that out, is like, you have to be so humble, right? Like, we are our clients' practice human. And part of the benefit of having a practice human is that we show up with our whole selves. And so like, my trauma comes into the room with me. My history comes into the room with me, but it also means that as I'm helping a client experience that, like, hey, whoever's on the opposite side of this couch, your next boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever, is going to come with their own stuff. I have to be really willing and self-aware to surface that with them, and also to be absolutely ready and able to hear from a therapist. I don't think that's the client's shit. I think that's your shit. And like, we have to be willing to hold that. And then just like in any partnership, be like, okay, so if this is part of what I bring to the table, how can you hold me in that space? How can I be responsible with my own feelings, and when and how I externalize that, and how I check myself? Because those are the skills we need in relationships, right? But it does, right? It's not the same as, right, in your therapist chair, this session is not about you. Stuff will come up and you'll feel it on the inside, but anything about you is going to be hashed out in your supervision with another therapist or whatever. But like, when you're a surrogate partner, like, your shit is present. So it takes a lot of humility.
Every therapist
Or a couple,
or yeah, lots. Yes.
I want to throw in, I remember when I first got started and I met Brian, and Brian was so generous to be my mentor because my program didn't include that. And I remember having my first client and being like, Brian, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, it's like one thing to like read things and watch videos and all these things, but like to show up in a room with another human being. And I asked, like, I posed a question, something like, how did you know I could do this work? Like, I need like a little confidence booster. And he's like, because you had good boundaries. Right. And I think that boundaries are something that I think, especially people that are socialized female, who we are expected to be helpers and to put ourselves last. And I think in any kind of helping profession, we have to unwire that inclination. And it's an ongoing practice. It's not, I'll say that they're better today than when I started in this work. I also started, in professional cuddling first, where I really got to practice them straight out of the gate. So getting really good at that, and emotional maturity, right? That like Lou said, to be able to be self-aware and to hold people's feedback, not from a place of defensiveness, but from a place of, yeah, you're right. Thank you for sharing that with me. I appreciate hearing that. That's not something everybody is really capable of doing. It's not that they can't learn to do that, but I think those are important skills to come into the work with.
Yeah. I mean, gives us a lot of overlap here with the skills for many other like helping and healing and teaching and sexuality related professions, right? Um, but yeah, it's the humility and boundaries pieces. I don't know. I'm feeling very touched by that today because there are days, and I'm really feeling it this week, where you're walking into a room with client and experience not just this session with you today, but the overall experience of learning that they're going through is one of the most profound things in um in their life, and it's a lot to hold. You have to be extremely humble about it, be prepared for all of your own personal stuff to maybe come up or get pushed, and also you need to be able to like hold boundaries around that this is deeply personal and profound work, and like you know at some point, like the sessions like have a duration. There's like a limit of how much I can be available to anybody. Any therapist will be able to relate to this, right? There's all of these stuff about holding boundaries so that you can just do the work and be a person. That coming into it, you have to be able to hold being the practice human, the partner, part of the surrogate partner, and also being this kind of clinical paraprofessional and kind of um, learning partner and guide for them. And so being able to hold multiple roles in a very intentional way with somebody is so important, but so rewarding when we're able to hold that and sort of see the things that people can learn and have unfold in that process, in that container that we help hold with them.
Well, that's beautiful. Thank you. I think we're getting so much good information, and I want to flip it a little bit in terms of talking about, so we're talking about the practitioner side right now, right? Which is mega important. However, let's talk from the client standpoint, because obviously y'all are working with people with trauma and various other things that can go on and affect people's lives in a way that like they're closed off, they're scared, they have a lot of different emotions that come up. And so I would love someone to speak to in terms of like the client practitioner relationship, weeding out the vetting process, as Lou spoke to, is pretty significant, which is incredible because I'm sure it's needed. It's a very personal space that could feel dangerous to some people if they're not used to working with someone hands-on in their space. So can you talk about, I don't know, some of the safety and also sort of how would you say to a new client that it's the right methodology or the right avenue of work to go down if they're thinking about contacting a surrogate partner therapist?
Y'all mind if I cover some of this? Awesome. Cool. Well, clients that typically come to us, they often come to us because they feel broken, right? I hate to say that, but that's usually how they walk in the door. So much so that it's really impeded their ability to have relationships in the wild. So surrogate partner therapy, if folks are really struggling with having any relationship, whether it's sexual or emotionally intimate, or healthy ones, right? If they find themselves in the same pattern of being in an abusive or unhealthy relationship, surrogate partner therapy might be a good choice. But also if a person comes in, they feel detached or closed off from their body, and that has really influenced their ability to be self-aware, to make asks, to articulate their wants in a relationship. Surrogate partner therapy is a really good choice for them. Like Jeannie said before, there are other modalities. There's professional cuddling, there's sexological body work or somatic sex education for more specific physical aspects of the work. But surrogate partner therapy really does a great job of binding all those, the physical intimacy, as well as the emotional intimacy and relationship dynamic. And we talk about how all those work in concert with each other, because it's rarely just one thing. You know, people come to us saying, my sex is broken and I think I need to do the sex to heal the sex. And that's not usually the case. Usually it's something else. Usually it's like, oh, I need to like learn how to be aware of my body. I need to learn how to communicate my wants and boundaries to a partner. And then everything else kind of falls out from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the need. I think I need to do the sex to heal this part, but there's always the other layers. I feel like we hear that on our end, people coming to us with sex questions about, I have an issue, I have an orgasm with my partner, I've never orgasmed with a partner. I want the like the quick tools. How do I do this thing? Like, well, but like what else is there? And it almost always goes to connection with their own body, past shame, trauma, all these other pieces. And then, yes, having the experience that's really positive that can change the system, but there's all these other layers that need to go there. Hence, our book starts with the trauma and doesn't go into here's the fun stuff you can do right away. And we're super important. So I have a question about, on the same note, what April's talking about for people who want to work with a surrogate. I know we're trying to raise money so that you can make it more affordable for clients as well. Are there any other organizations where people can, if they're like, I don't have a lot of funds, I really feel like I need this in my life. Is there anything out there? Nothing? No, shaking. Oh, really?
Even more of a reason to support.
Yeah.
Embrace spt.org. That's incredible that there's not.
I mean,
it's incredibly bad.
Yeah.
There
are other supports out there for people to access the mental health care, the talk therapy part of the equation. But in terms of working with us as surrogate partners, there's not, which is why we're working on the initiatives that Lou mentioned, and we're working to become registered as a nonprofit, so that we can make those donations tax deductible very soon. But we want to make that more accessible for folks. And listen, when folks come to me, or therapists or clients, I talk to them about, okay, like what else, what else can you try? Or what else, what are some of the other like ways of you exploring your goals and how to move through them? I don't, I think that historically there were some therapists and some SPs who kind of saw SBT as like only for like this very, very narrow set of circumstances, or as kind of like an option of last resort. I don't see it that way, but I also don't assume that like because I'm a hammer, everything is a nail, and it's a fairly intensive form of support. And a lot of folks can benefit from talk therapy. They can benefit from group therapy. They can benefit from community workshops or online workshops. They can benefit from a lot of practices on their own that there are, books and podcasts and other kind of supports to help guide them through. They can benefit from working on stuff with a partner, sometimes even with a relatively new partner. A lot out there. And there's a lot of reasons why those things, are maybe not sufficient, and there's missing pieces of the puzzle. So we want to make that, we want to make this form of support more accessible for folks for whom it feels like this is the missing piece in their process.
Yeah, it kind of goes hand in hand with just, we don't have a lot of great support for the mental health world in general. And when I think of mental health, I'm like, it's not just here. Also, like the mental health world also forgets often about like an entire body, or that sexuality should be a part of it,
like
especially
the mind-body connectivity or something, right?
So we're already not having a lot of support there. Like, I don't know a lot of people who get some form of like low cost or free therapy that say it's been like life-changing, amazing, beneficial. They do exist, but the majority are like, it kind of helps, kind of works, or like it does the job. But to be able to really work with someone where you can make these major shifts if it feels right to you, then would love for that to be more accessible. So we need to wrap this up at some point soon, and I wanted to just see if y'all from Embrace have any last words that you want people to know, whether they want to work with a surrogate or they want to become a surrogate. And anyone else on the call, if you have questions, you can throw them out there right now. Yes, speak your last words of wisdom or questions that you'd like to address.
I'd like to add that we have other resources on the Embrace website. If you are a therapist, we have some recorded kind of podcast, like we never put them, we didn't really launch a podcast per se, but we have some recorded interviews there that they can access just by going to the site. If they're a therapist, they can contact us and get access to a larger library of those. We kept some of them public, but some of them we have to really be careful about who is listening to kind of this talk. It's not necessarily appropriate for a potential client to be on the back end of how this work works. So those are additional resources. Embrace started as a resource group for our communities of therapists and surrogate partners to help build more knowledge so that there would be more work to keep this whole circle going. And so not only are we trying to raise funds, but we're also really working hard to help the therapists know that we're an option. And so I just don't want to forget that there are resources there for specifically therapists to check out.
Yeah, as a side note, I know we've talked a lot about how we host our biweekly groups for somatic sex educators and hands-on touch practitioners to connect with therapists. We've also talked about our fundraising arm, but like truly a huge amount of the Embrace work is going out and giving presentations and being part of Psychotherapy Network or Symposium, the ASECT annual conference, and just being present so that other professionals can really come in contact with us. And that said, like you can request of us from our website to like, hey, could you show up at a staff meeting for my therapy practice to just present to us what this is like and talk through how do we know if we have cases that could be appropriate for you? What does that look like? What are the expectations of therapists for collaborations? We do that sort of bridge building all the time because it's so necessary to help people realize just how absolutely necessary the work is. And like what, you know, when you're a therapist, sometimes you see things through the like, okay, if I'm sitting with someone in my office, and really it takes some experience and it takes hearing our case studies to get like, oh, this is what benefit you're going to bring to the process. 100%. If I had $1 for every time a therapist was like, you just learned something from this client in 2 sessions that I haven't been able to get out of them in a decade, it's like, I would have many dollars because it's a different connection. We have access to them in a different way because the level where we connect with them on is so different. Intentionally so, but you know, I think again, we're always building those bridges with the professionals so that they are aware of what we do and how to utilize SPs in the field.
Well, we'll continue.
If I could,
oh yes,
if
please.
I could just to first is part of why I'm so excited about this is to continue building this sort of community of professionals, of SPs, allied professionals, talk therapists, because I don't know where I would be as a practitioner without it. You know, it was Brian initially who kind of introduced me to this world and this professional community. Lou was the first person to step up to me and say to me like, would you like me to mentor you? Michelle, who has answered so many random questions about so many things. And that's the kind of community of professionals that I think that we want to build. And then if you are a tech therapist or you're just a regular person out there, Embrace's offerings are more aimed at kind of our colleagues and allies in the field. But I do think if you look at our practice websites, our individual practice websites at the SPC and IPSA and even the Embrace website, even if you are not going to somebody who is maybe going to be a client for SPT, I think that there is a lot that you can learn from the work that we do, from the way that we approach intimacy, sex, relationships, in terms of learning, in terms of skill building, in terms of games and exercises and experiments where we try things out differently and see what happens and see what feelings come up and see what we notice that we might not have noticed when we did things in the way that we're used to. And there's a whole other conversations that we could have about that. But I hope that if folks are feeling like SPT maybe isn't as relevant to them, that maybe it can be a jumping off point for other just ideas and resources that might be relevant to your life and your own ongoing learning around sex and relationships.
Well, also it's another, as you said, another resource. So for folks out there that might not want to be surrogate partners or surrogate partner therapists, they can actually refer folks that they know that it's beyond their means or their abilities. They can refer them to your organization. I think that's also a huge takeaway for me. Even when we do podcasts, right? We have talked about SPTs before, after we interviewed both Lou and Michelle. And I think having that knowledge, and then just every time we meet with y'all, it's always, I get more nuggets of gold and like, oh yeah, this is so important. This is so vital for folks. And and thank you, each of you that are SPTs. Thank you. And to anyone out there that's curious, go to embracespt.org and donate money, $5, $10, $20, $100, 1,000. What are you feeling? You feeling, don't go to Vegas. Just give your money to
You don't need to go to Vegas.
Vegas.
Yeah.
Gamble
Nothing good
for
happens
the
in Vegas.
future of humanity. So
And
yeah.
get freebies there. If
We
you go
do.
and donate, you get discount codes for various things. You want to buy sex toys, you get online workshops. So you give and you receive all at the same time.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Embrace organization. And I can't wait for you to be a nonprofit. And that will be on the horizon. And yes, if you have questions, you can always go to embracespt.org to ask more. You can always go to Shameless Sex and fill out a contact form if you're like, wait, what was it? I don't know. Or I have a question about sex. We're always here for you as well. And yeah. All right, y'all. I'm going to stop recording. Don't hang up.
Thank you.